So anyways, I'm using the very last amount that I had because I need to get this shit off the ground and off my chest. Who in their right mind is publishing content like this? Just straight edged. I try to do the looking at myself from a clear, sober mind point of view, and then I lose faith in myself. And I lose faith in my resolve and the belief that this could go somewhere and that people do want to hear it. 3 weeks ago, almost exactly, I graduated UConn. Finally found out because, I had a class or two that I was unsure about. And there was a graduation party just down the road. Instead of drinking a lot or taking something perhaps a lot more dangerous like cocaine or Molly, I like to add a little psychedelic in there and just vibe all night. But I ended up drinking a decent amount as well. I've had problems with that in the past. For example, the last time I cut my hair was like 2 semesters ago, last year. My friend and I ran around to like 3 different places to try and get a haircut. We ended up settling for this barber that we didn't know, charged way too much for a haircut that hurt me and looked terrible for my friend. Because we were having a blind date that night. Well, this isn't just any date night, this is the fraternity date night. And we can get into the politics of the fraternity later if you'd like. I wouldn't mind going into the details. I'm not saying I advocate for joining one. I'm not saying I advocate for not joining one. I love very many people. I don't like very many people. On this occasion, the night was themed cuff and bottle date night, which means that you're handcuffed to your date. In my case, this person I didn't know yet. She was absolutely gorgeous. And you have to finish the 750 that you get. In my case, it was Jaeger, because that's my family drink, and I don't know, I just defaulted to it. Some very regrettable actions took place. I thought they were going to have real handcuffs, and really what they had were these zip ties, And my right hand was zip tied to her left hand, because I like to be on this side of people because this is my one good working eye, remember? I had my left hand free. At some point or another, I got to blackout. This is what happens when you're deleting most of the bottle, because the girl that doesn't even really know you doesn't like Jaeger. And now you're trying to keep up with all the testosterone in the room. I'm told that they tried to separate us, which I suppose that involves like a steak knife trying to cut between our 2 wrists that are zip tied together. And apparently, while I was drunk, with my left hand, which is not my dominant hand, I was like, I'll do it. Grab the knife. I stabbed a girl in the face that night. It's not funny. It's not funny. It actually kind of tore me apart a little bit. And that's why I still haven't cut my hair. It's been like most of a year now. When you wake up and you realize that you endangered someone, she was fine. We're actually still friends. Friendly with each other anyways. We ended up nicknaming her Stabby McGee. And I found out in a party where we caught up afterwards that she ended up nicknaming me Stabby. We're going to bleep that out. We're going to bleep that part out. Luckily, she was only scratched, but when you wake up and you find out that you endangered someone that you didn't even know, that's when you start to realize that you're just not doing things right. But still, when you're a kid and you have all this anxiety and you're trying to fit in, you're living with the only friends that you grew up with, trying to get a girlfriend, and they all seem so homogenous up there at school. You still look for that way to gain some confidence when you're out. So I never stepped away from the drinking, really. I was scared of it for a while. I took it easy. And I don't know, it kind of made me very antisocial for a while. We went up on the ski trip. I bought this nice 4-pack of IPAs. I bought this cherry brandy right when I started tripping. It was like the very first time. I'm at the liquor store, and it's starting to kick in. And everything just starts to look so beautiful, And my friend's looking at me like, oh shit, is gonna be okay? Like, because I think you could see, in the pupils and in the smile, that I'm starting to go somewhere else, And contrary to what you might think, being out in public and thinking you're going to have that anxiety that, something's going to go wrong, someone's going to look at you the wrong way. Instead, I was sitting there like, oh, why would anyone look at me the wrong way? As long as you carry yourself, you're just a guy that's enjoying life. You have no problem. You only have a problem articulating yourself when you have all those anxieties in your head, like you're not going to be able to articulate yourself. Like, oh God, how is this social encounter going to go? When you stumble into it like, But for me, for months, whenever you saw me, people started calling me acid. I started a Snapchat called Trippy. Whenever you saw me, I just had this fluid confidence, like whatever I was doing was right. And I think you feel that as a child. I have a family member who's a dancer, and I was just watching one of those dance shows with her. J-Lo is like a judge or whatever, and this 9-year-old comes out, and she's fearless. The cameras are all around her. It's the first time she's out there, and she's just smiling, having a ball. She doesn't mess up whatsoever. She gets sent to the next round, and my fam's like, geez, how did that girl have so much confidence, like, especially at such a young age? And I'm thinking in my head, you have the most confidence when you're a kid. You have no reason not to be. No one's taken it away from you yet. And that feeling of that innocence, like, I am doing all right. Like, everything I'm doing, I'm meant to be doing. That's the feeling that you get on this stuff. I think that theme carries over into almost the entire album. That it doesn't matter what you're doing, you just have to be doing something. And that the most unfiltered something, the something that no one is watching, that you're not thinking about, is the something that's the most artistic, the most beautiful, because it's the most organic, and it's out of nowhere. The very first time, I remember writing down in my notebook these crazy things like, I was observing myself being me at the same time. I remember saying I was acting myself and filming myself at the same time. And I love that, because that allows me to then not be the conscious mind that made the art. If you critique it, it was from the deepest parts within me, but it wasn't consciously said by me or written by me. Often it was something that just seemingly comes out of nowhere. And in that way, I'm also allowed to be the audience. And that thrills me. I like to be the audience. I remember having this one trip while I was all alone at the frat house. And I set up microphones throughout the house, pressed play, forgot about them. And just went crazy, Singing all this random shit, making up these characters, planning out the future. And I remember just listening back to it and just being like, what the hell? I like to think that my favorite art to watch and to be a fan of is influenced in the same way. I think Justin Roiland and Rick and Morty, fantastic idea. I like what Duncan Trussell is doing. Joe Rogan talks about this. It's misunderstood. It's misunderstood.